AITA for not attending my family Christmas gathering because I can't afford the $250 white elephant gift. I am 29 female. Every year, my family has a big Christmas tradition. It's been this way for as long as I can remember, and it's always been the highlight of the holiday season for me. We all come together, my parents, my siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, even some close family friends, and it's always a fun, chaotic day filled with food, laughter, and games. But the main event, the one thing everyone looks forward to the most, is the white elephant gift exchange. For those who may not know, white elephant gift exchanges are usually meant to be lighthearted and fun. In my family, it's always been a mix of quirky, creative, and sometimes slightly ridiculous gifts. I remember one year someone brought a giant inflatable flamingo pool float, and another time, someone brought a waffle maker shaped like Darth Vader's helmet. There was even one time when my cousin managed to gift wrap a live goldfish in a bowl. It was wild. The gifts are always a hit, and the whole exchange is just pure chaos in the best way. But this year, something changed. My family decided to raise the price limit for the white elephant gift exchange. At first, I thought it would be a minor increase, maybe from the $50 limit we'd had for years to something like $75. But no. They raised it to $250. $250. For one gift. When my mom first told me, I thought I had misheard her. I literally laughed and asked her to repeat herself, thinking it was some kind of joke. But no, she was completely serious. Apparently, some of my wealthier relatives had suggested it during a group discussion, and everyone agreed it would be a fun way to make the gifts more exciting. I wasn't part of this discussion, by the way. It seems like the decision was made without input from a lot of people, including me. I get that inflation has been rough, and maybe a small increase would have made sense, but $250. That's an insane amount of money for a single gift, especially for something that's supposed to be lighthearted and silly. The whole point of a white elephant exchange is that it's fun, not about buying something extravagant. This new price limit completely changes the vibe of the tradition, and honestly, it made me feel pretty uncomfortable. Here's the thing, I'm not exactly swimming in disposable income right now. I've had a rough year financially. Between unexpected medical bills, rising rent costs, and just the general expenses of daily life, I'm barely scraping by most months. After paying for my essentials, there's not much left over for anything extra, let alone a $250 gift. It's not like I don't want to participate, I've always loved being part of the gift exchange, but the idea of spending that much money is just completely unrealistic for me. I brought this up with my mom, hoping she would understand where I was coming from. I explained that I simply can't afford to spend that much, and even if I could, it feels like an unnecessary burden. She didn't take it well. She told me I was being petty and that it's just one gift. She said I should look at it as a fun tradition and not stress so much about the cost. My dad chimed in, saying I was overreacting and missing the point, that it's not about the money but about the spirit of Christmas. He even went so far as to say that I should make it work because the family is all coming together, and that's what matters. I don't think they fully understand how tight my budget is right now. It's not like I'm being stubborn or trying to be difficult. I genuinely cannot afford this. And it's not just the white elephant gift. With a family this big, about 18 to 25 people, I'm also expected to buy gifts for my immediate family members. Even if I keep those gifts modest, it still adds up. The white elephant exchange has always been a fun way to give one gift without breaking the bank, but now it feels like an exclusive club for the wealthier members of the family. When I told my mom that I might not come to the gathering if I couldn't participate in the exchange, she accused me of being dramatic. She said I was making a big deal out of nothing and that it would be awkward if I didn't show up. I told her that it would be even more awkward to sit there and watch everyone exchange expensive gifts while I had nothing to contribute. I don't want to be the odd one out or feel embarrassed about not meeting their expectations. It's supposed to be a joyful time, but the thought of being there under these circumstances just makes me feel anxious and out of place. Some of my siblings have weighed in on this, and their opinions are mixed. A few of them agree with me and think the $250 limit is ridiculous, but they're planning to participate anyway because the majority agreed to it. Others think I should just suck it up and join in because it's about spending time together, not the gifts. But it's hard for me to see it that way when the financial burden feels so overwhelming. I've been stewing over this for days, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me feels guilty for even considering skipping the gathering. I love my family, and I don't want to miss out on the chance to see everyone and celebrate together. But at the same time, I feel like this new price limit is completely unreasonable and unfair to those of us who can't afford it. It feels like I'm being pushed out of a tradition I've always loved because of my financial situation, and that hurts. I don't want to cause drama or make a big scene, but I also don't want to put myself in a situation where I feel humiliated or stressed during what's supposed to be a joyful time. So now I'm stuck, trying to figure out if it's worth going at all. Am I being selfish for thinking this way? Or am I justified in feeling like this new tradition isn't something I can, or should, be part of? I'd love to hear what others think. Am I being unreasonable? Or would it make sense for me to sit this one out? I just want to do what's best for my mental health and my finances, but it's hard not to feel like the odd one out in all of this. Update 1. So, after days of going back and forth in my own mind, I decided to bring up the issue again with my family. Honestly, it felt like a long shot, but I figured maybe, just maybe, we could find some kind of compromise that worked for everyone. The $250 limit still felt ridiculous to me, and I was hoping that if I explained my concerns more clearly, they'd at least be willing to meet me halfway. This time, I approached it from a different angle. I suggested lowering the price limit to something more reasonable, maybe $50 or $75, so it would still feel like an upgrade from previous years but not so extreme that it excluded people like me who are struggling financially. I also floated the idea of making it more about creativity rather than the dollar amount. For example, we could do a creative budget challenge, where the limit was $50, and the goal was to find something unique, handmade, or even secondhand. It felt like a good compromise to me, a way to keep the tradition fun without turning it into a financial competition. To my surprise, some of my siblings were actually on board with the idea. A couple of them admitted they also felt uncomfortable with the new limit but hadn't said anything because they didn't want to rock the boat. One of my sisters even said she loved the idea of a creative challenge and thought it would bring back the playful energy the gift exchange used to have. For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of hope that we could salvage this tradition and make it something everyone could enjoy again. But then there were my parents. When I brought up the idea to them, their reaction was, not great. My mom immediately dismissed it, saying that the $250 limit had already been decided and that it wasn't fair to change the rules just because a few people couldn't handle it. She called me cheap and accused me of ruining the family tradition by making it about money. I was stunned. I thought I was approaching this with a spirit of compromise, but apparently, she saw it as me trying to derail the whole thing. Then, my mom casually dropped a bombshell. She and my dad were the ones who had pushed for the $250 limit in the first place. According to her, they thought it would be a good way to encourage nicer gifts this year. I was floored. All this time, I had assumed it was one of my wealthier aunts or uncles who had come up with the idea, but no, it was my own parents. My dad tried to backtrack, saying it was just a suggestion and that everyone else had agreed to it, but my mom doubled down. She said the higher price limit would weed out the thoughtless gifts and make the exchange more meaningful. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about family or tradition or even Christmas spirit, it was about status. My parents wanted to elevate the whole thing to make it feel more luxurious, more polished. But in doing so, they were completely missing the point of what made the gift exchange special in the first place. It wasn't about the gifts themselves, it was about the laughter, the silly surprises, and the joy of sharing something fun and unexpected with the people you love. I couldn't hold back anymore. I told them, point blank, that if they cared more about the price tag than the actual meaning of Christmas, maybe they were the ones ruining the tradition. I'll admit, I was pretty heated at this point. I didn't yell, but my frustration was obvious. My mom didn't take it well. She said I was being disrespectful and ungrateful for all the effort she and my dad put into organizing the holidays. Then she hung up on me. What happened next was like pouring gasoline on a fire. My siblings, who had been relatively quiet up until this point, started blowing up the family group chat. Half of them were siding with me, saying the $250 limit was ridiculous and agreeing that it went against the spirit of the tradition. The other half thought I was completely out of line for calling out our parents and accused me of being overly sensitive. One of my brothers even said I was ruining Christmas by making it all about myself. It was a mess. People were arguing back and forth, and the group chat became this chaotic battlefield of passive-aggressive comments and outright accusations. Some of the messages were supportive. My younger sister, for example, said she totally understood where I was coming from and thought it was unfair to put that kind of financial pressure on everyone. But then there were others, like my older brother, who said I was acting entitled and should just find a way to make it work if I cared about being part of the family. At this point, I was emotionally drained. I had gone into this conversation hoping for a reasonable compromise, but instead, it felt like I had just ripped open a can of worms. My mom wasn't speaking to me, my dad was trying to play peacemaker but clearly sided with her, and my siblings were divided in a way that made me feel like I had started a civil war. It was exhausting. To make matters worse, a couple of my cousins chimed in, saying they thought the new limit was fine and that people who couldn't afford it should just opt out quietly, instead of making a big deal about it. That stung. It felt like they were saying I didn't belong, like my financial struggles made me less of a participant in the family. Now, I'm left trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wants to just skip the whole thing and spend Christmas on my own or with friends. But another part of me feels like that would only validate the idea that I don't belong, that I'm somehow less worthy because I can't keep up financially. It's not just about the money anymore, it's about feeling like I'm being pushed out of something that's always been a source of joy and connection for me. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe my parents will cool down and we'll be able to talk about this again. Maybe my siblings will come up with their own compromise and make the gathering more inclusive. Or maybe I'll just have to accept that this tradition isn't what it used to be and find a new way to celebrate the holidays that feels true to me. Update 2. Okay, so here's the kicker. After all the drama, one of my cousins reached out to me privately. She said she had heard about what happened and wanted to let me know she completely understood where I was coming from. Honestly, I wasn't expecting this at all because she's one of the more reserved family members who usually avoids conflict. She admitted that she's been feeling the same way about the $250 price limit but hadn't said anything because she didn't want to cause any drama. She's also in a tight financial spot right now, and the new limit is just as unrealistic for her as it is for me. What really surprised me, though, was when she told me that a lot of our extended family feels the same way. Apparently, several cousins and even a couple of aunts and uncles are quietly upset about the price limit but haven't spoken up because they don't want to upset my parents. I had no idea so many people felt this way. I guess it makes sense, though. My parents have this tendency to treat the white elephant exchange like it's the Oscars of Christmas, and no one wants to be the one to challenge their vision. Hearing this gave me a strange sense of validation. For days, I've been feeling like I was the odd one out, like I was the only person who thought this whole situation was ridiculous. Knowing that others felt the same way made me realize that this wasn't just my issue, it was something bigger. My cousin and I started brainstorming ways to address it. We figured that if enough people were uncomfortable with the price limit, maybe we could propose an alternative option. Something like a second, lower-budget gift exchange for those who couldn't, or didn't want to, spend $250. It seemed like a reasonable solution. People who wanted to stick with the high price limit could do so, and those of us who preferred something more affordable would still have a way to participate. We decided to quietly talk to a few more family members to gauge their interest. The responses were eye-opening. Several people immediately said they loved the idea and admitted they'd been dreading the gift exchange because of the price limit. Some even thanked me for bringing it up, saying they'd felt too intimidated to speak out on their own. One of my uncles, who's usually pretty laid back about everything, said he thought the whole thing had gotten way too serious and agreed that a second option would be a good compromise. It was starting to feel like we had real momentum. But, of course, word eventually got back to my mom. I don't know who told her, probably one of the cousins who's firmly in her corner, but she did not take it well. When I say she was upset, I mean she was furious. She called me and accused me of trying to stage a coup against her. Yes, those were her exact words. A coup. Against her. Over a Christmas gift exchange. She said that if I didn't want to follow her rules, then I didn't need to come at all. At this point, I wasn't even surprised anymore. My mom has always been a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to family gatherings, but this was next level. The way she was talking, you'd think I had tried to cancel Christmas altogether. It was like she saw my suggestion for a second gift exchange as a personal attack on her authority. Her reaction was so over the top that it honestly made me pause and reflect. Why was she so invested in this? Why did she care so much about the price limit that she was willing to alienate not just me but potentially half the family over it? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't really about the gifts at all. It was about control. My mom has always been the one to organize the holidays, and she takes a lot of pride in how everything turns out. I think the $250 limit was her way of elevating the tradition to something she considered worthy of the family, and any pushback felt like a threat to her vision. But here's the thing, I wasn't trying to take over or undermine her. I just wanted to make the tradition more inclusive. I wanted everyone to feel like they could participate without feeling stressed or excluded. My cousin and I weren't even suggesting replacing the $250 exchange, just adding a second option. The fact that my mom saw this as a betrayal said more about her than it did about me. Now, the situation has escalated to the point where it feels like there's a mini rebellion brewing in the family. More and more people are starting to speak up, and it's becoming clear that the $250 limit isn't as popular as my parents thought. Some of my siblings, who initially told me to just suck it up, have even started to change their tune after hearing how many people are struggling with the new rules. It's like a domino effect. Once one person spoke out, others felt emboldened to do the same. But with all this support, I'm still left wondering if it's even worth it to go to the gathering this year. My mom has made it clear that she sees me as the instigator of all this drama, and I know that if I show up, it's going to be tense. I don't want to spend Christmas walking on eggshells or dealing with passive-aggressive comments. At the same time, though, I don't want to let this situation ruin my holiday or my relationship with the rest of my family. As things stand now, the family is completely divided. Some people are sticking with the $250 exchange, others are quietly planning to participate in the second, lower-budget option, and a few have told me they're considering skipping the gathering altogether because they're so fed up with the whole situation. It's honestly heartbreaking to see something that used to bring us all together become such a source of conflict. Update 3. Well, this whole situation has spiraled into something I never could have imagined. After my mom's outburst accusing me of staging a coup, things started snowballing in ways I wasn't prepared for. What started as a personal struggle with the $250 gift limit has somehow turned into a full-blown family drama that's pulling everyone into its orbit. It's like the family dynamics that have been simmering under the surface for years suddenly boiled over, and now no one seems to be holding back their feelings anymore. It all started when a few more family members, emboldened by the growing dissent, began voicing their frustrations. My aunt, who is my mom's sister, was one of the first to speak up. She has always been the kind of person who keeps the peace, so when she openly criticized my mom, it caught everyone off guard. She called my mom elitist and said that she had completely lost sight of what Christmas is supposed to be about. My mom, of course, did not take that well. She shot back with something about people not appreciating her efforts to make Christmas special, but by then, the floodgates had already opened. Then, my uncle, my mom's younger brother, decided to chime in. He revealed that he had been planning to skip the family gathering altogether this year because of the $250 price limit. He admitted that it was just too much for him and his family, especially with how expensive everything has gotten lately. He said he hadn't wanted to bring it up because he knew my mom would take it personally, but now that everything was out in the open, he felt like he had to speak his truth. Hearing that honestly broke my heart a little. My uncle is one of the most laid-back, easygoing people I know, and for him to feel excluded from a family tradition because of money just felt so wrong. At that point, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My mom, clearly feeling like she was losing control of the situation, made a dramatic announcement. She was canceling the white elephant exchange entirely. She said that if people couldn't respect the tradition and follow the rules, then we just wouldn't have one at all. It was like throwing a match onto a pile of dry leaves. People started arguing left and right, and the group chat became an absolute dumpster fire. Some family members were siding with my mom, saying she was right to cancel it because the whole thing had gotten too contentious. Others were furious, accusing her of being controlling and unwilling to compromise. And then, the talk of splitting the family gathering started. One of my cousins, bless her, stepped up and offered to host an alternative Christmas dinner at her house. She said that anyone who felt uncomfortable with the $250 gift limit or just wanted a more relaxed, drama-free celebration was welcome to join her. That's when my mom completely lost it. She accused my cousin of trying to undermine her and said that splitting the gathering would destroy the family. My cousin, who is not one to back down, calmly pointed out that the family was already divided and that this was just a way to ensure everyone could still enjoy the holiday in a way that worked for them. And so, the lines were drawn. On one side, there's my mom and the family members who are loyal to her vision of a perfect Christmas. They've decided to stick with the original plan and have the dinner and exchange at my parents' house, complete with the $250 price limit. On the other side, there's my cousin and what my mom has now taken to calling the rebels. We're planning a much more low-key gathering at my cousin's place, with no price limits, no strict rules, and no pressure to spend more than you're comfortable with. I won't lie, this whole thing has been incredibly stressful. I never wanted to be at the center of a family feud, and part of me still feels guilty for setting all of this in motion. But at the same time, I feel like this needed to happen. For years, my mom has been dictating how the holidays are celebrated, and while I know she means well, her need for control has clearly alienated a lot of people. It's not just about the $250 gift limit, it's about the bigger issue of people feeling like their voices don't matter and their circumstances aren't being considered. As for me, I've decided to go to my cousin's gathering. At first, I felt torn, like I was somehow betraying my parents by choosing not to go to their house. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this isn't about taking sides, it's about choosing to spend Christmas with people who value the spirit of the holiday over material things. My cousin's gathering feels like it's going to be full of love, laughter, and actual connection, and that's what I want for myself this year. I've spent too much time stressing over money and family dynamics. I just want to enjoy the holiday for what it's supposed to be. The fallout from all of this has been intense, to say the least. My mom is still furious and hasn't spoken to me since she found out I'm going to my cousin's house. My dad called me once to talk sense into me, but even he sounded tired of all the drama. On the flip side, I've gotten a ton of support from other family members who feel like this split is a long time coming. Some have even told me that they're relieved because they've felt excluded or uncomfortable for years but didn't know how to address it. Now, I'm trying to focus on the positives. My cousin and I are planning a fun, stress-free celebration, and we've already come up with a few creative ideas for the gift exchange. We're going to keep it simple and meaningful, things like homemade gifts, thrift store finds, or something under $50 that has a funny or sentimental twist. It feels like we're bringing the tradition back to its roots, and I'm genuinely excited about it.